Welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, the journey to becoming a conscious man. Hey all, Stephen here and welcome to episode 60 of the Unearthed Man podcast. I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Anthony. I'm hoping it was informative as it was thought-provoking. The exciting news is that I'll be working with Anthony at the Outback Spiritual Festival being held in Bukindji country in August as part of my men's workshop. Now, recently I've made the most of my living location and made it a priority to experience sunrise every morning and then take in as many sunsets as I can. Based on the location of a house and its south-facing windows, I get to experience these amazing red and orange sunsets most nights. A great friend of mine, who will be appearing on a future episode of the podcast, made a comment while staying with us for a few days that he also makes it a priority to observe sunrise and sunset every night. As a Nil man, now living in Wadawurrung country, his simple observation was how many sunrises and sunsets his ancestors must have witnessed over the thousands of years they occupied this land. It's on this basis that I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So a quick shout out again to my sponsor, the Surf Coast Wellness Rooms, based down here in Torquay, Victoria, Australia. As men, we spend much time looking after and caring for others and very little time on self-care. So you now have an opportunity to change all that. Using the code, the Unearthed Man 10, when booking, you receive a 10% discount on any of their services, including float tanks, infrared saunas, massages, and salt therapy. Great to use before or after a day at the beach. You can find a link to the website and the code below. Few things to run through before we kick off with today's guest. First up, the Unearthed Men community. It's made up of men willing to support and be supported by other men. It continues to grow. We've got 50 plus men in that community and we would love to have you on board. So if you know a man or a man who's seeking his tribe or his community, then please use the link in the show notes below to sign up. Alternatively, you can just send me a message via any of my social media channels. Secondly, please subscribe to this podcast via your preferred app and leave a review. The quickest way to enable the podcast to become more accessible worldwide is to receive a 5-star review. By doing this, you're also acknowledging and thanking my guests for their time, effort, and wisdom. And finally, if you're a man struggling with a daily grind, have constant feelings of guilt, shame, anxiety, feel irritated or frustrated, have lost track of who you are, the deep inner sense that there is more to life than this, expressions of interest for my 8-week men's empowerment program are now open. I've only taken 10 men into each 8-week program this year. Therefore, if you are interested, click the link below to join the waitlist as it is filling fast. So, on to today's episode. First came across today's guest through a previous guest, Watine Wayanga, the founder of a men movement. I know little about him, apart from him being the creator and director of Muller Coaching and Mentoring and the men's work movement Heartled Warriors and Heartled Men. He facilitated a men's retreat in February, and by all accounts, it was a huge success. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today, as most men who work in the men's coaching and mentoring space have had many lived experiences they use as the backbone to guide and support other men. So, welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, Dane Muller. Hey, Dane.
Hey, mate. Thanks for having me.
No worries. It's a pleasure to have you on board. As we were just chatting before, you're enjoying starting to travel around Australia, and you've had 12 months just on the road, which is something that takes a bit of courage to grab the family and start to get traveling. That sounds like an awesome experience.
It is. It's the life that we've chosen for ourselves currently. We, like I said, been on the road for about 12 months now. My wife and my 2 boys who are floating around in the van here somewhere. And yeah, we were at a point in our lives where we felt a little stuck with our day to day and weren't happy with where our lives were. So we decided to sell everything and get on the road and discover ourselves or rediscover ourselves.
Yeah.
Somewhat.
I love that because, part of belief systems and men and women is the fact of that whole got to grow up, got to go to school, got to have the house, run the mortgage for 30 years, build assets for the kids so that, they have a better life than what we have. And, there's a lot of people who have that whole, I wish we could have only seen more of Australia. I wish we could have only traveled more and everything else. So, were there challenges with you in that dichotomy of, probably conditioning belief systems from parents versus, hey, we're going to pack up and just go?
Not look, not really. There was in the societal sense that you have to have a house, you have to have a car, you have to have this, then you have to give it all. You have to give it all your kids. Like we know, we don't have to do anything. It's what you want to do. So my wife and I were going through some pretty huge changes and shifts, and and not a great place in our marriage. And her father was really sick. My father's really sick, and we were basically just waiting there for people to pass. And we did all the things. We had the house, we got the kids. Kids were in great schools, and we're doing all the things that people wanted, and it just wasn't fulfilling us. We weren't happy. Going through personal issues myself, my wife was going through personal issues, and it was just a relief to go, yeah, let's not do this anymore. Let's do what's right for us, what feels good for our soul. And yeah, we sold everything and bought the van, and we've now been traveling in it for a touch over 12 months.
Awesome. I love it. However, one of the challenges that we have, I think as men is often, setting boundaries and around family and our immediate family perceptions about what they think. So I want to get into your journey. Like I want to travel back, but I'm happy to just chat here for a sec. So how's that worked with you?
Sure.
Because often other family members will, there can be cases of jealousy because you're doing what they've always wanted to do, but haven't had the courage or, and different things like that. So how's that worked for you? Is there anything in that area?
Well, from my family side, or my mum and dad, there is, yes, jealousy, and no, not a bad way. It's just a jealousy of you guys are just going for it, because my dad's he has cancer, really, really unwell. Most likely, this will be his last year, in all reports, which is great, because it's just one of those things where he just doesn't have any value in his life now with how he's living day to day. So, and that's part of the reason as to why we chose what we wanted to do, because my dad was a police officer for 40 years, had a caravan. As he retired, my mum and dad wanted to go travel Australia. Then 2 months into not even 2 months into their trip, he was diagnosed with his cancer. So my wife and her family, they travelled around Australia and did lots of camping and stuff when she was really young. So this was great for them when we told them. And it was actually, I needed the convincing from my wife. She was like, let's do this. I'm like, I don't know, because I was so stuck in that, my values of needing the job. I was working, I had my own company. I was a carpenter for almost 20 years. And I'm like, what will I do? Like, what am I going to do? How will I provide? So that was playing in my head. And then it was literally a sentence from my wife. She's like, what happens if we wait to do this and then one of us gets unwell like your dad? And I was just like, that hit me like a ton of bricks. It really did, because I honestly hadn't looked at that angle before, because everyone thinks they're invincible. And I thought I was invincible. I'm like, no, it would be good. I've got to save all this money and do all this. And then she said that, and I'm like, oh, you're right. You're so right. And then within the week, we'd had the deposit on the van and planning the trip, and I was deep into learning everything caravan. And I grew up in the country, so I've been camping, and just the whole caravan thing was new. That's all. So yeah, that was a huge turning point, and probably it was the best decision we've ever made.
Awesome. And I think what you indicated there is something that I see a lot of, in that, like your dad, when I retire, I'm going to go and do this. And I just regularly hear so many instances of, I had a guy that he was a junior football coach, and his dad saved up all his money and bought a holiday house down at Lawn, because that's where his dad was going to retire, and that was his dream. And his dad retired, bought the house, and then 2 months later was dead. Never got to live in the house, and recurring. I mean, my close mate's mum, in her 60s again, traveled overseas once and then never traveled again and then passed away. And so I just constantly see this. And so I love the fact that, that's what you're doing, because I'm a massive advocate of it's your life. I talk to the guys I chat to, go, your life is not a democracy. Like, we often think it has to go out there and we have to get this poll thing. And, if people can choose what we do, it's like, just live your life, and, we've got to live it now. So awesome. So let's go back. So you said, yes, carpenter or a builder for 20 odd years.
Carpenter, carpenter and then builder.
Yep. And now you're sort of into the men's space. So I'm really interested to sort of go, how does that work for you? So what was like, childhood? What was that growing up for you? What were the lived experiences that have sort of moved you across into going, having, again, and I've used the word courage a couple of times, but it's like for you to say, hey, I've now got a medicine or a wisdom or knowledge that I can help guys, move beyond some of maybe their belief system. So can we go on that journey?
Yeah, sure. I'll go back. So I grew up in a small country town and was a great young sportsman. Anything I did I was really good at. When I was 6 or 7, we moved to the Gold Coast, and being in a larger town, larger school, lots more kids, that sporting thing was still a huge part of my life. I was great at everything. Soccer, rugby league. It was during my younger years, from about 9 or 10, where I started making rep teams and things like that, that I would put a huge amount of pressure on myself, even as that young kid, because being great at sport was how I thought I got my love from others.
Yep.
Because I would get noticed, I'd get the accolades. I'm like, oh, they love me because I'm really great at this. So, 2 seconds. Sorry.
Hey, right.
Yes, mate. I'll have to find it in a minute. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, mate. Daddy's just on the phone. Okay, just give me a minute. Yeah. So
just tell all the listeners on here, right? Dane's with his 2 kids traveling. His wife is off running a retreat, and so she's away for a period of time. So this is going to happen through this chat, right? And this is the beautiful thing about men choosing just to live their life with a couple of kids, be parents. And so this is how it's going to work. So enjoy the conversation between me and Dane and his kids, and we're just going to have fun on this conversation. So
100%.
Away you go.
He was just looking for his special stick.
There you go.
That he found yesterday. So
love it.
So yeah, and because I thought, and again, this is all my thoughts, it was no one else's telling me this is what it was. This is how I felt that I received love and gained love. So being great at sports was huge for me, because that's how, I thought I loved. I trialed for a rep team when I was 10 or 11 years old and didn't make that rep team where I probably should have, and was extremely hard on myself. And I've only learnt this in the last few years, of this is where my self-doubt, self-worth actually begun, because I didn't make that team. I was hard on myself. And from then on, if I didn't do something or win or get those accolades or do as well as I knew that I could have, extremely hard on myself. And over those sort of few years, from 10, 11, 12, you're pretty hard on yourself and not telling anyone. I developed this is where my suicidal ideation started.
Right.
As a young fella, I never acted on it or anything like that. And though it was this, I haven't done this, I'm not good enough, I shouldn't even be here.
Okay.
And that continued on my entire life through teens and adulthood. I had a great upbringing. I lived in a very female dominant world. Sisters, aunties. It was just my dad. And he was working. I had a great relationship with my dad. So I lost touch at a young age, and I didn't have the choice, because I didn't have the resources of that divine inner masculine energy.
Yep.
I was always in that. I was always coming from a wounded space.
Yep.
So having all that rugby league became a very serious thing for me from about 13, 14 onwards. Great young footballer. Again, had clubs made all the rep teams. If I didn't make a certain level, then I'd be extremely hard on myself, and those dark thoughts would always come in. And as time, it just gets worse and worse and worse. So you're having these thoughts every day, which was similar to what I was having. And then end of school, I signed with a team, ended up playing pretty high level of rugby league, didn't continue on. And when that's your lifelong dream and it doesn't happen, sort of the world was sort of crashing around me. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then needing a job, because that's what has to happen. You have to make some money. I actually wanted to join the police force.
Okay.
Following my dad's footsteps. He really suggested for me not to. He's like steered me into other directions, which is great. And that was because he didn't like it anymore. So he didn't want me to do something he didn't like, which was a valuable lesson for me. And I ended up doing my trade. And I did my trade because I had some other mates doing it and wanted just to be around my mates all the time. Never liked building.
Okay.
I enjoyed some parts of it. I just did it because it was a job, and then in it for 3 or 4 years, and you're in it for 6 years and 7 years, and it's just like, oh, I'm here now. I'm stuck. This is what I do. Didn't really like working for others. I really enjoyed working for myself. So that's the part of it. So I had my own business. Again, just doing the things to tick by. All the while, my depression, which I was labelled with later on in life, was getting worse, and the suicide ideation never left. Was always there, and moved into my own business, and then and then later on, sort of late 20s, met my now amazing, beautiful, talented wife, who's I mean, I know I did everything with it. She was really the one that set me on my path, or helped me.
Yep.
Which was I'll be forever grateful for. Met her, and then it was a roller coaster. We met, and I think it was 3.5, 4 months later we were engaged. 8 months later we were pregnant with our first child, and a year later we were married. And this is now 10 years on, and we're still 2 kids. So got married, kids. That was great. Had all our usual ups and downs, as a lot of married couples do when you have your first child and stuff like that. And you begin to, and we work with a lot of couples as well with this, where you become best mates, and you're just two passing ships at night in the house. There's no real, you lose the connection and everything like that. And then time comes where you think, oh yeah, now I need to have another kid. So we end up having our second child, and this was having our second child, Beckham. I got 2 boys. Madden's the eldest, Beckham's the youngest. He was a catalyst for huge change for us.
Okay.
So he was a blessing in many ways, and yet such a huge downfall. And not having him as a child, but downfall for me for what happened, because we had a hugely traumatic childbirth at the point of where I was sitting in the theatre, pretty nearly certain that I wasn't going to walk out of there with my son and my wife.
Wow.
So he was premature. Anything and everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong. And we look like, even after that, the fact that happened, we looked that day when it all happened, we looked at it as a blessing. We never looked at it as a negative. It was always a positive, because like, holy shit, we cannot believe that this has just happened and we actually have our son. So there was never a negative thought around that until later. Even like the hospital staff said to us that we would need to seek some professional help because of what had just happened. Even the hospital staff themselves, some of them were needing some professional help. Just because of, it was really full on. So I thought I was all good. Few months come in, and I started having nightmares and dreams and just recollections of the time, and that was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, where it was just daydreams. Anytime that I wasn't busy, I was thinking about them dying. It didn't need to be that situation. I'd have all these thoughts of them dying in other situations.
Right.
And it consumed my life, where from when I didn't want to go to sleep because I knew that I was going to have nightmares. Yeah, I was given the label of PTS, and we call it PTS because it's not a disorder. We
Yep.
feel it's because it can be changed, and I'm
Yes.
a perfect example of that because I've moved through that and without medication or anything like that. So, which added to the depression, and then added to our marriage troubles, and it was just getting worse and worse, and being so deeply depressed and so thinking in a negative way, I was just going down a pretty horrible path of just destructive path within my family, within myself, within my business. And it's just, and you don't have any control over that. And I didn't, or I thought that I didn't. And then it come to a head where it was choose a new path or lose my family.
Right.
Which was what was about to happen. So, and I knew what I wanted, and that was my family, and I chose a different path. And again, everyone has their own gestation period. So my journey wasn't as quick as my wife's self-discovery. It was my time, it was my journey, and it's still going. It never stops. So, and it was actually the night that Beckham was born. I was working as a project manager for a major construction company on the Gold Coast, and we knew the day that he was going to be born. So all my trades, everyone knew. So, and at 8:30 that night, I was still getting phone calls and emails and everything from work. And being the person that I was, I couldn't not answer them.
Right.
And then I know that was my choice. I still had to answer him, and I couldn't enjoy that my son was just born and what we'd been through. And my wife, sorry, Stephen.
You all right?
Yes. Okay, well then go to the toilet, mate. It's okay. Yep, yeah. Okay. And I couldn't enjoy that. And my wife's like, "What's wrong?" And I just went, and I'm going to swear, I said, "I fucking hate this. I never liked the construction industry. It was a huge reason as to why I was feeling the way I did, because I didn't want to get up and go to work.
Yep.
I hated it. I really did. And that's nothing against the industry itself. It was just how I felt about it. And it wasn't fulfilling me. And then leaving that energy behind, I ended up moving into investigations in child protection for a little time, which was hugely fulfilling for me. I felt that I had some purpose for once in my life, and it got me on the path of I need to help people. Like for my entire life, I felt as though I had a purpose. I just wasn't sure of what it was, and this started the wheels to get me into where I am now. So spent a few years there. The agency that I worked for unfortunately lost its government grant, so I was without work, and this is around the time that we were deciding to get on the road. So timing wise, it worked out really well, and we got on the road. So yeah, and then moving into self-development, my wife she was a nurse for 13 years in the Air Force. And again, she went into nursing because she wanted to help people and felt that's where she needed to be, and soon realized that it wasn't quite for her. She wanted to help, and just in a different way. So she started her journey of self-discovery and moved into and doing a few different courses, like life coaching, NLP, all the things. And we'd seen the psychologists, we've seen the counselors, we've done basically anything and everything that you can possibly do. We've tried it. Yep. And until we found a few different techniques and things that work for us, and it's a very holistic approach that we use, that was the only thing that worked for us. We were out on the road and she'd have clients, and Nadine, my wife, she'd built a fantastic social media community over 5 or 6 years. Such an organic following that, and her audience, they just love her and love who she is, and you can't not, because she's such a beautiful person. And we always thought, how can we use this for us? Like, what can we do? And we were doing all the things, we're doing the sponsored content and all that type of thing, and it just wasn't, again, not fulfilling. And then Nadine was asked a few times, "You should move into coaching, you should do this, you should do that," and she she never thought of it until she started doing some courses. And she's like, this is what I need to do. Started calling in clients and creating this company that just exploded for us. And it was a few things that happened for me which helped me move into that. And being around coaching, I was doing processes on myself because we had Nadine and we had some staff that were all coaches, and I wasn't a coach at the time. Well, I just didn't know it.
Yep.
And I was doing these processes. I mean, I'm like, and just having these moments of myself of discovery. I'm like, oh, this is why I do this, and this is why I'm doing that, and just really those penny drop moments. And there was a few times I'd walk into the caravan while Nadine was on a session, and I could hear, never see them, but I could hear some ladies that would first start, and I could hear the sadness in their voice. And I could feel that. And then I'd walk in a couple of weeks later and it'd be the same lady. And I'm just like, and I'd ask Nadine, is that so-and-so? And she's like, yeah. And you could just hear the happiness in them.
Yep.
And I was just like, wow, there's something to this. I said, I need to do more of this self-discovery so I can have that happiness in my voice too. And there was a couple of big moments there where she's an amazing coach. She's phenomenal. And I'm just like, yep, I'm going to go do these courses, do that. And during my courses, there was a part where there was a very intuitive piece that comes through, and it was a part of men's work. And I hadn't learned or seen, or other than through Wah, who you spoke of earlier in the part. He's a great mate of mine. I played footy with him, and he's just attended our last retreat.
He did, yep.
And he, I'd always see his things and see the men doing that. And I'm like, it interests me. I didn't know. And we did some men's work during my course, and there was a pivotal moment in there, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks in the greatest way possible. It was like, this is my purpose. Yep. This is what I need to provide for others. If it has this effect on me, it would be wrong of me not to share it. So that's when Heartled Warriors was born. And 8 weeks later, we had our first retreat, which is pretty amazing when you just create a company. I had a couple of one-on-one clients and hadn't done anything else, and I was straight into retreat because I knew that we had something special and what we wanted to provide would make a difference, and it has. So yeah,
that's what an amazing journey. Thank you for sharing all the way through. In relation to why, I'm going to be helping with it when the men guys come down to Melbourne in March.
Oh, the 19th.
Yeah. So yes, 19th.
Yeah,
March.
I'm possibly going to be there as well. So.
Oh, awesome. So I'm not sure when this actually will come out live. So there's a chance that we've worked together because Waz asked me to be part of the support crew. So that's going to be awesome.
Same. Oh, fantastic.
That will actually get to support these beautiful men. And just on that last point when you talk about, when you just drop in, like I did Preston Smiles Unleash the Beast with, I don't know whether you know Blaze Grinner and a few of the guys up your way.
I don't know him. I know who he is. Yeah.
Yep. So I did that 2-day weekend of Unleash the Beast, and after being held and supported by 50 men in a room for 2 days and spending 80% of it crying and releasing a whole lot of what I call was the demon of anger and everything else. Like I just knew, like I walked out, my heart blew open because that's the sort of guy I am. I'm like, and my wife goes, like Steve, like he will just dive into everything. He doesn't go in like if he's going to go on the workshop, you'll get everything from him type of thing. And that's what I do. And I've always done. And my heart just blew open. And then, I'm like, I know my path. And that's where I sort of started to go down the Unearthed Man path. And I worked with Blaze and a few guys for a while. So I want to take some steps back on that journey for you. You use the word destructive a few times. And I'm interested because that could be many variations for many different men. And so I wouldn't mind unpacking that if that makes a bit of sense as to what was that destructive behavior? Did it also include, alcohol, drugs or whatever else? I mean, what makes up something you call destructive?
Destructive. So yes, I would self-medicate. You'd have a big week at work and I wouldn't I didn't know how to express my feelings.
Mm.
If I did, I'd always think it was unloading on someone. So I would finish work on a Friday, go to the pub, have a few beers to relax, calm down. A few beers would turn into too many. I'd be out till all hours of the morning, get home, and I mean, you're at work, your phone's flat, so your wife doesn't know where you are, you haven't seen your kids, and it'd just cause issues. And then there'd be arguments because of that, and because I didn't know how to process arguments or want to deal with that, and that's started from a young age, I just completely shut down. There'd be no communication whatsoever. And that just led further and further into more of that behavior. So, yeah.
Mm. So how did you, I know you sort of said, there were some pivotal moments, everything else, but, to go from that to transition, I don't know where you're at now, drinking wise or everything else, but, to transition out of that, like what were some of the steps or what did you have to sort of go through? Like what's that recognition process and how did you work through that to be able to, because a lot of that is to say, oh, cool, I'm just going to stop drinking. But if we still don't deal with all the root cause issues, then alcohol can turn into drugs, or alcohol can turn into gambling, or
Yeah.
alcohol. Like you just try and pick another vice, or you just deep dive and become addicted to something else.
It would only ever be once or twice, not even twice a week. It'd be once every week or once a fortnight. I would just hit it.
Yep.
Hit it. I wouldn't drink any other time other than when I was not able to express myself. So that was my release, which is definitely not the right way. For me, I hit rock bottom. It had to be rock bottom. So I can't believe I left this part out. The rock bottom for me was, again, after an alcohol fueled night, there were arguments with my wife. The next morning, sitting in the bottom of the shower in tears, talking to myself of why I shouldn't end my life. And this is something my wife didn't know. Again, this is after the post-traumatic stress, which I kept and hid to myself for 12 months before I actually told my wife, which was actually a huge relief, letting someone know, and that eased things for me. So that actually brought us closer together again. And then again, a little further down the track, sitting in the bottom of the shower, I'd been seeing the psychologist, I'd been doing the counselling, hadn't started my journey as yet with what we're doing now. And I was doing the work, and it wasn't for me, it was for her. It was just a Band-Aid at the time. So it wasn't for me. I wanted to be with my wife and keep my family together. So I was just doing what was needed. That would just Band-Aid. It didn't make it any better. It just was enough to keep that sort of fracture together. And sitting in the bottom of the shower, Nadine come in and she asked a question, and I told her, and I'm sure that she didn't know. It was just completely new to her, a shock to her, and she had towed me along to all these things, and she hadn't had enough. She'd done all the things and tried to get me to work on myself, and then the last thing was some fucking extremely tough love from her, which are words that I use to this day for other people as well. And that was, she said that no one's coming. I hated hearing that because I thought she didn't love me. I'm like, no, you should be telling me it's okay and we're going to do this. And yet this is the most love she's ever given me at that time. She's like, no one's coming. She's like, I'm here to write it with you. And no, I can't write it for you. You have to do it for yourself. So that was really hard to hear. But no one's coming. And I didn't like it. It didn't make me feel any better. Sat there, I ended up getting out of the shower, drying off, spoken to Dane a little more. And she was going through some really hard times. Her father was just into a nursing home and had a stroke. So she had so much shit to deal with as well on top of that. And then for her husband had come out and told her that he has this suicidal ideation, has most of his life. Just an added pressure on her, and it just goes to show how fucking strong she is. And it wasn't until maybe a day or so later where those words just kept on going over my head, and I was just like, no one's coming. And then it just clicked. I'm like, no one's coming. No one, like they just clicked. I'm like, I have to do this for myself
Mm.
because that no one's coming. And I started to learn about generational trauma. I started seeing some of my traits, my anxieties, my fears show up in my eldest son. I was just like, oh, I don't want him to, he can't live the life that I'm living. And we can always say to our kids, do as I say, not as I do, that old
Yep.
saying, which is completely not right. It should be
Yep.
banned from using that because kids model our behavior and what we do, our actions. And he was modeling my behavior. And that was a huge light bulb moment for me as well. So I'm just like, yep, I'm not doing this. And even still, over a few of the courses, the first course I went into, I was still, most of it was for my wife. Some of it was for the company because we created this company. It was going so well. And I'm like, oh, I want to be in more of the company. And probably the last was the kids. And then, last of all was still me. And then 10 minutes into this course, which is a beautiful course, there was a couple of really big light bulb moments. And I'm just like, because there's a second stage to the course as well. And the dean was always like, oh, mate, sign up and do the next stage as well. You'll need to do it. I'm like, well, let's just see if I can go all in on this.
Yep.
And then we'll make that decision. 10 minutes into that course, there was some huge moments. 10 minutes in for me, and I messaged her and I just said, yep, I'm doing a master prac. I said, it's not for you. It's not for the business. It's not for kids. It's 100% for me. And she, and I get getting emotional about it now. And she just messaged, she was like, fuck yes, it's about time. So that was,
It's a super powerful moment. I think in men's lives when we actually do it for us.
Yeah, huge.
Because we're just taught not to for some reason. It's like we have to be the rock for everyone else, and we have to be the foundation, and we have to be, racing around supporting, our parents and our family and our kids and everything else, because that's what we have to do first. And when we get that one moment to go, fuck, I'm being a bit I use the term selfish, which is, with a dash in it, because I'm going, it's a bit about myself for once. And it's scary and it's weird, but it's so powerful when you get to that. I think that's when we as men start to take back our power. And the more that we take back our power, the more we can actually be better men and better fathers and better husbands, because we're actually coming from a place of power, not a place of fear anymore, and not a place of shame and guilt and repressed, traumas and so forth. So I
100% agree. And it's what we're taught. You have to, again, that word, that have to, I really don't like that word. You have to do this for your family. You have to go out and work for your family. And yes, and you get to do that. So discovering that self piece for me was huge, because yes, you're putting yourself first. You're being that selfish. You're choosing you every single day. So every morning I get up, I choose myself first. What do I choose? I choose myself. I choose my relationship, and then I choose my family, in that order. By choosing myself first is actually putting all the others first anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a question I ask a lot of men. I say, can you look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself? And I would say 99% of those people will say no. And that's not right. It's one thing that I will change with the impact that I'm creating is having men love themselves and being okay with it, being more than okay with it, loving that they love themselves. That has to change.
I agree. One of the most powerful exercises that I did and now do is actually dance naked in front of a mirror, because it solves for so many things. I've had body issues. I've had self-belief issues, self-doubt issues. And when you can actually dance naked in front of a mirror, be brushing your teeth or post-shower, and you actually can smile and laugh at yourself, that's the place to get to, because then, and so for me, that's been part of my journey, and it's something that I talk with other men about. Say, hey, here's the thing I now want you to go and do. Try this. And most men go, no, I ain't doing that. And it's like, okay, so now we're going to break that apart, so that's a key question for me. It's the test for me. It's one of almost a test for men. Can you literally dance naked in front of the mirror and actually just love everything that you're seeing, every jelly bit, every wobbly bit. Doesn't matter whether you're fit as or not. Yeah, can you do that? And so that's probably the first indication of where the self love is.
Definitely.
But let's again. I'm interested in as you said, you did the sport, and then you said, oh well, I got to get a job. Yeah, and now that you're working with man, and as you said, you just went off, got your trade, didn't want to work for anyone else, so built your business, but you did it because of this thing called money. You did it because of it's the right thing to do because I need this to support a family and everything else. But your heart was never in it.
Mm-hmm.
How often, how challenging do you find? Because I think that's where, for me, that's where a lot of depression and disconnection comes in because there's no heart in it. There's no true passion in it. So how often are you seeing that when you're now having conversations with men about, where they're at and linkages between what they would love to do versus what they are doing and whether that's creating challenges for them?
I find it a lot especially in a lot of young men in their early 20s, that self-discovery piece. And again, in men in their mid to late 30s as well. And it's not so much finding their passion, it's they don't know who they are. So finding who they are first is what we aim for, and finding yourself then creates that where's my passion. It's a question that we ask nearly all our clients is like, what do you want to do? Like we ask them, what do you want to do with yourself? What do you want to do in life? Like, I want to do this, I want to do that, or who are you? And they go, oh, I'm a nurse. And I'm like, no, who are you? And it's a question a lot of people can't ask. They actually don't know who they are themselves. So that's the inner work. That's the self-discovery. Find out who you are. And then honestly, the rest is actually pretty easy.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the questions I've asked some of the men in my group recently, which is, tell me the thing that really makes you happy. Like, what's the thing that brings you joy? And they can't. They stop. And you go, like, we're going to do a visualization meditation, and I want you to visualize yourself in your happy place. And they just go, I'm not sure what you mean. And for me, that's really sad that somewhere there's the flicker of the light is deep down in the heart, but it's so deep now that we've got to, how do we break that back out? And how do we find that thing that they were 3 or 4 or 5 that they just loved doing that lit them up? It just gets buried in between a whole lot of stuff that's happened in their life. And for me, it's like, how do we get that little, how do we turn the wick up on the candle and actually, really get it glowing and try to work our way through that with men?
That's actually, I've just had a little moment of realization. That's why I love football so much, and especially the training side of it, that just having those men around, that feeling of that togetherness. And though growing up playing football, there's a lot of unhealthy habits created in football teams and that, and you I'm not bagging on it in any way, shape or form. It's now what I've realized is I've just created that in the retreats and found a really healthy way to release traumas and stuff like that. And the community and the bond that we're making and creating with the men that are actually on here is a lifetime of bond. So yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. I was probably, it's really funny as you're telling your story that was so many similarities to my story. Growing up with 2 brothers in the middle, played sport, super competitive, always had to outdo both of them, and then, made a rep team and then got cut because of a whole lot of basic bureaucracy. And there's all these things that sort of played out. And so as you were talking, I'm like, oh, yep, I feel you, and I know where you're at with all those elements. But I agree. I think one of the things that I loved was as much about playing the sport and the competitiveness, it was actually that beautiful friendships and those connections that you just made. And recently we had a guy who was with us from the US who went back to the US and he's just come out to Australia. And so a group of us got together, and now all in our 50s, and we played baseball together back in our 20s. And, it just felt like you'd step back into to the same thing, but it was funny because everyone put their personas back on. Like it was, you could just see
Yep.
that everyone's like, oh, okay, I'm this person because that's who I used to be, and I'm this person. So it's almost
Yes.
like you're all the way back
Yeah.
20 years to that persona, and then
Yeah. And
you
it's
stepped out. Yeah, here you go.
that's it. Yeah. And playing footy and being in those team sports at a young age, you put on this facade as well of this person that you think you should be.
Mm.
So and that's years and years and years and years of doing that you need to unlearn to really learn um, newer, healthier habits.
Yeah, and that's really scary because that's where the labeling, the identities, and everything come through. My first 2 years of doing the podcast, I was like, "Hey, welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast. This is Milvo," because that was my nickname, and everyone knew it by me. And even now, like Wire will call me that, and everything else. But this year it's like, "Hey, it's Stephen," because I had an awakening that even that was a mask. Like I'd
Yep.
gone to a 3-day retreat, and I wrote on my little tag thing my nickname. And then the next one I went back to, I actually said, I'm going to write my real name here because I'm actually
Yeah.
who I am. It was like building
Yeah.
this business. And I'm like, no, I'm standing behind who I am now. Yeah, that's great that people call me because that's affectionate and I like it.
Yeah.
But I realized how much of that was even limiting me because there was a certain persona that I had attached myself to that
Still
person.
linked to your past. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how great is it though? How long you've been in this work, and myself, that you're still having these realizations. You're still
Oh,
having these. And that's a big thing that I say to the men that finish up on the retreat in the last day is like, I don't care where you go or if you continue working with us or somewhere else, just never stop doing the work, because like I had realizations then, you've had realizations recently. The healing that I actually do for myself, facilitating these retreats, is massive.
mm,
Like it never stops. People people come into a retreat, do the work, and come out on this high and like, everything's great. I'm a different person. You never get rid of those self doubts, self beliefs. They're always there
mm.
forever. They're just part of your life, and it's just integrating those into your now life. They're going to pop up all the time. Continuing doing the work, you just find ways, or it's just easier to move through those self doubts,
Yes.
self worth, all of those limiting beliefs that you have about yourself. They're always going to pop up, and we say your growth's on a spiral. They're saying new level, same devil.
Yep.
So you might have a huge heap of growth, and maybe over 12 months, and then you come around to this next spiral, and that same point, there's that devil, there's that self doubt, self worth piece. And you're like, oh, what's this here? I've done all this work, and I shouldn't be having these feelings again. No, you're always going to have these feelings. Instead of sitting in that shit for a week, a month, you're like 20 minutes. You're like, oh, okay, it's here. It's showing me I'm about to have some huge growth again. Let's get through this. So we can. We're fortunate because we're always in the work and within the work, and with our team, we've got 10, 11 in our that work for us in our team now. We can feel each other when they're about to. So these shadows are popping up. So we're like, oh, so and so's about to have some growth. We all get excited, and not like, oh, why is this happening? It's like, oh, why is this happening? There's something
Yeah.
happening for me here. So we love the fact that, and literally, we pulled up to this place a few days ago, really windy, had some not so great things happen, and in the past, it would have just, for a week, I would have been in the dumps, like angry at myself, all the things. Literally 10, 15 minutes, I was like, okay, all good.
Yep.
And it was only minor things like I'll tell the story. Setting up the caravan, big side awning, locked in, huge gust of wind come through and took the awning off the caravan.
Oh shit.
Landed on the roof. I've got all solar on the roof. We were outside, me and the boys, and I was just like, that actually, like, I was really calm with that. I'm like, oh, that sucks. And I was like, no, look, I'm like, yeah, where's the lesson in this? Look at the positives. Didn't hit me, didn't hit the boys. Great, no one's hurt. But oh yeah, I've got 1,200 watt of solar on the roof. Jumped up, had a look. None of the solar was damaged. Okay, just the awning. How many positives out of that instead of the one negative? So I didn't focus on the negative. Rang the insurance company, covered straight away. New one's getting delivered. No dramas, all good. Within that confusion, that chaos, in that small amount of time, I couldn't find my car keys. The next morning, I'm like, oh, where are my car keys? And this is the thing I got annoyed at myself the most. I'm like, where am I feeding car keys?
Mm.
Still haven't found them. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that I may have thrown them in the bin, cleaning everything up, which is fine. And for that 10, 15 minutes, I was really hard on myself. Like, God, and yeah, we got a spare set. And then I was like, okay, big deep breath. They're just car keys. And then everything just went, and I was good.
Yep. Yep.
Light in my body, let it go. Just car, like they're just. And most of our issues around that, which get us all constricted and tight, is something as simple as you can't find your car keys.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you can map that across into anywhere of your life.
Oh, absolutely. All the time. I definitely agree with that. It's something that I've found now as well. There were things that my wife looks at me going like, because I was a great erupter, like I was the volcano, go, okay, big explosion. Everyone would run for cover, not to get covered in the heat and the lava that was coming their way. And, and then they'd all sneak back out. Is everything okay? And and so things will happen now, and you can start to see, I got adult kids and they're starting to duck and weave a little bit, going, what's about to come? And I'm like, oh well. And I'll just move on. They go, hang on, something strange here, because and they're conditioned to expect something. And my wife's like, even my wife was, and I go, what are you doing that for? She goes, oh, look, scan. I haven't recovered, and I'm now helping her understand and work through that. I know she's carrying trauma because of how I behaved.
Yes.
Some of her reactions and some of her defensiveness, or when I say something, is actually just due to my behaviors in the past. And the onus is on me to help her work through that. No, it's actually now safe, and things are safe in this environment for her now.
Yes.
And so I'm aware now that I can't say something that's caused the trigger in her. And because I've been able to move on and go, okay, I'm okay now. I've got to realize that might have touched something deeper in her that I had previously caused, and I still have to hold space and help her work her way through that to come back to safety. And that's something that I'm learning now. That it's good that I've moved on, but that doesn't mean that others have gone in the same direction.
Yeah, and though you're modeling that new behavior of self-work and self-discovery, where they're like, "Oh, Stephen's doing this. This is," and you'll tell them, and you'll tell them along. And touching on that, just the ripple effect that has on people, not the newer stuff, the older stuff. Like in the past, if I had have lost my keys, I would have been angry at myself all day, which would have turned into frustration at my kids. They would have just been being kids, not doing anything wrong.
So, folks, just
To work on yourself.
So just hang on a sec, Dane. I think you just dropped out for a period of time there. So,
okay.
So I'll just go back, and you're at the point where you said kids were just being kids. So maybe if we can just double back,
kids are just being kids, not doing anything wrong, and then you're frustrated at them, and then you're passing your frustrations onto them, and they've done nothing wrong. So that's the ripple effect that you have on, like, you not controlling your emotions or not dealing with yourself properly has a huge ripple effect on so many other people as well. And on the other end, you doing the work on yourself, becoming that better person, becoming that divine masculine person, has a huge ripple effect on so many greater ways as well. Like so many other guys, so many of the men that leave the retreat have had this new self-discovery, and the ripple effect that's had on other men and brought them into our awareness, or they're aware of us now, is huge. So just, yes, it's always about you, self first over everything. And no, choosing yourself has a huge ripple effect on so many other people.
Yeah. And I like what you've said there, because, ripples can actually be negative and positive. And so, as you're saying about your kids, if you stay frustrated with the kids, they're actually going to learn a coping mechanism and an emotional suppression coping mechanism, because that's how they protected themselves to stay safe. And then that's what they're going to carry on when they're 15, 17, 19, 20, 21, 23, and they're they end up with some destructive behaviors because of that ripple effect from that negative aspect. But if we can change that early enough and actually be the positive role model, and as you said, the true masculine, and actually show them what it's like to stand up and be vulnerable and have the courage and talk into the emotion, then that sends a positive ripple effect. And then they grow up as not to use, it's a bad term, but well adjusted, but basically emotionally aware young adults who are actually able to regulate their nervous system and regulate their emotions. Doesn't mean that they're not going to still need to go off and express them somewhere, but at that point in time, they don't bottle it and explodes. They just find a healthy way to express those emotions, which is where we've got to get to.
That's right. And I know that this is an assumption here that some people may be watching this going, oh, these guys never get frustrated or angry or upset. Bullshit. Yes, mate. I'll wash it, mate. Yeah, it's okay. Can I just finish on my call first? Thanks, mate. He wants to say hello.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah, and that's not right, because yes, we do get frustrated, we do get angry, we do get upset, we get all the feelings. We're only human. It's just we know now how to work through them. So if I feel my frustrations coming up in a situation, which I've got kids, happens often, I'm aware of that. I catch that awareness. I hold myself accountable for that frustration. I'm like, okay, so what can I do now to work through this frustration without projecting this onto my children?
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I love that because that's one of the key things. It's that catch, inquire. So there's two elements: catch, inquire. Why is this coming, and where's this coming from? Here's the next thing I've got to work on. And how do I not project this onto my partner, my family, my kids? Because it's not theirs to own. It's my.
That's right.
And it's the key thing about you spoke earlier about Dane, and we spoke about this. It's that coming back to me. It's that coming back to and it's that coming back to have the accountability and responsibility to look at yourself first and put yourself first, which is learn to love yourself, learn to deal with these sorts of things, and then you don't have to project the negatives out there. In fact, what you're projecting out there is the positive, the love, the healthy relationships, the healthy emotions, and everything's going on, and the healthy way to regulate and deal with emotions, because we're always going to have them. Always going to have them. Up until we die.
And even, oh yes, 100%. And even there could be, like, I love getting up of a morning, meditation, my breath. That's my time, early morning. Because yes, we do live on the road. We have kids. I've got dogs to walk. Early morning, I used to feel like it was a chore having to get up and walk the dogs. Where really, I'm like, no, this is my time. I should really enjoy this. This is the time I get for me every day. So I love getting up early now, because that gets I get to do my breath, I get to do my meditation. I just get time for me and my dog. We're bloody kindred spirit. So that's our together time. And I don't do that every day, and that's okay. I know I don't need to do that every day. And though there'll be times where I can start feeling my old habits, my frustrations and my anxieties starting to come up. And that's where that awareness and that accountability piece, I'm like, okay, what am I not doing at the moment that I was doing before? I'm like, okay, I need to get consistent with my daily habits again, my daily rituals. So again, that awareness and accountability piece are so it's two words. If you take anything from this chat, awareness and accountability, that's where a lot of it's at, is having that as well.
Awesome. I agree. I love those two words, and I think they're very powerful and very simple to for people to work through. You've been very generous with your time, and I know your kids are like, "Hey, come on, Dad, it's Dad time. Let's get together on this." Is there just I know we left a few messages for the men, but if you want to wrap up, is there a message that you would leave for men, and the women are listening to this, but it's just predominantly focused on the men, that something they could do, or one of the key lessons that you've had that you'd want to impart?
Yes, I'm just going to fix a robot, a transformer somehow. So okay, mate, I'll be off in a couple of minutes. Just give me a couple of minutes, okay? So I will touch back on the awareness and accountability. I don't know how to open it, mate. Can you just give me a minute? Madden, can you do it for him, please? Oh, the feet. Give me 2 secs, please, Stephen.
You're right.
I'll just have to get a knife.
Go for it.
A knife?
So I'm going to add in here. This is a great example of, where we sit. So we're doing a podcast here, right? But Dane's priority is his kids. It's beautifully sending a message to the men out there. But just notice how we've gone about this. He hasn't got angry with his kids. He hasn't, got frustrated. He hasn't told them to go away. We've just gone through the process. The kids have been awesome. I mean, they've been hanging around now for 50 odd minutes, and if anyone's got young kids, good luck with that. So I think it's testament just to show that this is what life is about. And, this is where the priorities come in. So thanks, Dane, for how you've been working with this. So anyway, let's go back.
I've got it fixed now, so we're good. We're good. Transformers.
Transformers resolved.
So what I will leave, and I actually thought about this because I knew this question was going to come up, and this is a big piece for me, and it's so simple, and it actually happened in one of my breathworks. It was I was very close to my grandfather. He passed 10, 12 years ago now, and I never felt I got to say goodbye to him. And during the breathwork, I was in touch with him, and he said 2 words: "It's okay." I didn't make sense of that until until days later. I'm like, I felt that was his way of saying it's okay that we didn't get to say goodbye. You always hear that sort of thing. What it was the okay was for it's okay about everything. All the good, all the bad, it's okay. And for me, that was hugely healing. And that's what I will give to everyone. It doesn't matter what you've been through, what you've done, or what type of person you think you were. It's okay.
Thanks, man. Such a beautiful way to finish off. And again, very simplistic in its message, but a lot of complexity. But thanks for that. Yeah. I do really appreciate your time today. I love the fact that you're just now on this traveling journey with the kids. Clearly there's some beautiful energy and relationship going on there. Your kids, had respect for your time, and you've had respect for them along the way through, and that's been great. Thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
No worries at all. And you enjoy the rest of your trip and the rest of the day, and we'll chat again soon. Cheers, mate.
We will, mate. Thanks for having us.
Cheers. Hey all, how good was that conversation with Dane? As I said at the start, I hadn't actually had a chance to really meet Dane or have a chat up front, but I'm also excited that we'll be doing a workshop together, and we'll get a chance to continue to build a bond. Just on the aside, I got emotional when he spoke about his grandfather coming back to breathwork, because my grandfather and my uncle came to me in breathwork after they passed away, and they actually gave me the same message, which allowed me to let go of all the anger and frustration I had. So, and my grandfather had passed away 15 odd years before this breathwork. So just, so for me, that was a really powerful message, and so much alignment as we spoke through. So definitely, if you're looking for, reach out and find Dane. Heartled Warriors is an awesome program, and he's got his group of heart-led men. I think the name says it all. And as you've heard, he's definitely a heart-led guy. So reach out and touch base with him. His links are going to be in the show notes below, so you can click on those and easily go and follow what's happening there. And for me, as you know, you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Certainly jump on if you're interested in doing the program. If you're looking to, hey, there's got to be more to this. If you listen to this and you go, hey, these guys have been from point A and point B, I don't care which program you said. As Dane said, I couldn't care less. Do mine, do Dane's. Just do the work. Really lean in and do the work, because the life does dramatically change for you, and you can start to move forward and remove the conditioning. So on that note, I'm going to wrap up now. So that was episode 60 of the Unearthed Man podcast. Sending you much love, care, and peace. Stephen.